Hmm. We are live now.
Okay, awesome.
Right. Hey, thank you so much, Vasu, for joining. Hello, everyone. I'm very, very pleased to have Vasu Jagdishan from Coforge with us. Vasu is a senior leader at Coforge and leads the Salesforce practice. He's also someone who has a very in-depth sense of where large Salesforce enterprises are headed and what they're doing. So, without much ado, Vasu, I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to be here. I know we had a brief conversation before this, so excited to be here and sort of share the perspectives also that we have, and also what have we been seeing, when we talk to customers, right? So yeah, I mean, I think this is interesting. These are interesting times for sure, right? Uh, a lot of change, but a lot of considerations and a lot of angst also around AI, right? So just how do we demystify it and how do we bring value? I think that's the biggest question in everybody's mind, right? And time to value and what kind of things can we automate for them through AI, right?
True. So really on that note, what are you hearing from Salesforce customers? I know Coforge works with a lot of large and mid-sized customers, and practically probably all sizes in all industries. But tell us a little bit about the kind of nature of industries and what's the consideration, the point of view your customers have on Salesforce and AI.
So I think from an intent or a curiosity perspective, almost every customer is looking at AI automation, right? So what does that mean to them is two things, right? One part of it is on the time to value. How do I speed up my own time to value in terms of my development processes? How does AI come in to accelerate and bring velocity to me? So how do I deliver more innovation to my end customers or to my business, or as an IT organization, if it's IT, their whole goal is how do we do this faster? How do we bring better value to business? So that's one part of it that we are seeing, right? So that conversation starts with what are the tools, whether it's GitHub Copilot or Cursor AI, or how do we accelerate development? How do we use MCP tooling to kind of drive that whole automation all the way through to everything from user requirements all the way through QA test cases, etc. So there's the whole life cycle that they want to automate. So that's just one part. Then the business automation comes, right? How do you surface AI in customer experiences, user experiences, partner experiences? How do we bring maximum automation to the application itself, right? So persona based automation, whether it's an agent or a customer support agent, or if it's a salesperson, or if it's a claims adjuster, or it could be any persona depending on the domain or the industry. How do we, or customer onboarding, how do we bring an agentic flow or experience to it? And then self-service capabilities for everything, right, from partner portals to customer portals and so on. So I think the need is something that is there, but I think the challenge they have is what is the level of maturity of their orgs in terms of data, in terms of data quality, in terms of siloed data, or how do we bring all of this for realizing the promise of AI, right? So some part of it is the conventional AI, also the predictive models and recommendations, next best action, looking at your past transactions to predict future, and all of it. How do you deliver this in terms of at the application layer, right? So, and with that comes the usual questions of customer data now getting into this mix, and how do we deal with data security and privacy and PII. And so I think you've got multiple questions that they have, right? So I think they are navigating this in a very circumspect way, because they are also worried about you know those kind of critical issues, and they need to be satisfied. So what we've seen is the appetite is there, but you know they're being cautious because they are not fully confident or on board, both with their internal maturity of their org, or the complexity of the org, or do they have foundationally, are they ready for realizing the promise of AI, right? So that's, I think that's the one question. So do we need to fix things before we can even pull the trigger on purchasing or licensing, whether it's data cloud or Agentforce or any other solution? And then the second biggest conversation is, hey, why do we need to use only these proprietary tools? Why can't we use our own things? And so there's another larger conversation on, tooling, right? And licensing. Why can't we bring our stuff? And of course, there are limitations and questions and considerations around that also that they want answers. The last part of
Yeah.
it is, I think, this whole
Hold on,
maturing journey, right?
Hold on.
Sorry,
I'm
go
going to
ahead.
stop you right there because there you
Yeah.
said some very interesting things that I don't want to lose sight of. You
Sure.
mentioned three broad areas: AI and automation, persona based, and self serve.
Yeah.
Uh, and what's interesting is I was actually at Dreamforce last week and I
Hmm.
met some customers. One of them said exactly this, particularly around persona based, because it seems like that is a really good logical construct to think about how would you package AI and who do you serve with AI. I'm curious if you want to dig into that a little bit more of what you're seeing and maybe if there are variances based on industry. Would love to get your point on that.
Yeah, so I think that is the biggest area of opportunity, if you will, right? There are complex tasks that where cognitive effort can be reduced through agentic automation, right? So, for example, if there's a claims adjuster or fraud detection or other things, so that guided process takes away a lot of the cognitive effort that's required or the manual effort that you go through, right? So the automation possibilities for helping a claims adjuster or an underwriting agent or in the insurance world, or for example, somebody is doing KYC or they're doing complex customer onboarding, right? Documents that need to be okay, and then how do you bring in OCR and how do you pre-fill forms from the documents that have been submitted? What are the compliance kind of automation that you can do to see, hey, have they submitted everything? Are you complete and stuff? So there's a lot of automation possibilities for these things, and which are also driven by the persona. Like, for example, you can take even consent management in healthcare, which is a far more complex um, requirement than what Salesforce provides today, right? Because consent has a lot of very different aspects to it, depending on whether it's for life sciences or clinical trials or for other areas, right? So again, this is a you can tackle a lot of complex areas through this kind of AI automation, right? And I think there lies the largest promise. The self-service is a low-hanging fruit. You can do a lot of that stuff, right? Where either you're supporting users or partners or whatever. I think that part is definitely the quickest one where you can prove, like in the customer support arena, or you can do some of this. But the real opportunity lies in the end user personas from different industries, right? Where you are providing efficiencies and automation. At the end of the day, you're able to process a request, significantly quicker, right?
True.
And therein lies the value, right?
Yeah.
And you're also doing some reduction of cognitive effort. So all this data is being analyzed for you, and it's kind of taking you down that path, right? So
Yeah. So I have a counter question to that because it's interesting. You said like self service is a low hanging fruit. When it comes to AI, I almost get a sense that it's the other way. Like customers are
okay,
mortified to put a chat bot or an AI that is public facing or customer facing or partner facing, right? Because they're like, hey, I don't know if this is trained enough. Like there's not enough trust in the whole AI is gonna open and close tickets for me type stuff. There is a bit of a, get my feet wet because some of the customers that I am working with and we have in the past, who are live with GPT-5 and other things, what I'm finding is they find it a lot easier to do stuff internally first, right? Like do it for my sales rep or my internal support rep, because if this thing is not up to the mark, it's still my internal audience versus me getting, my
like,
company getting published on New York Times because the chatbot sold
yeah, yeah.
for $1.
No, that's a refreshing thought. When I say that low hanging fruit, see, logically, people sort of gravitate towards support as the first area of automation. So they say, hey, you know, there's huge volumes of tickets, there's things we can automate, we can provide self-service advanced capabilities, that they can solve their own problems. And so that automation looks, so you're right, the liability part or getting something wrong or the fear of, putting a public facing thing, that is real. I wouldn't dispute that. But where I said low hanging fruit is, logically people gravitate towards support as the first area of opportunity. Whereas you're right, it should be perhaps the other way around, where you're minimizing your risk on the internal parts, right? Where if something goes wrong, it's still contained, you know, if for lack of a better word, it's localized to your area and it's not going out in the public domain, right? So I get that, but the world, the first conversation everybody ends up having is around customer support, which is funny, right? Because people see, hey, that's where call center, contact center, how do we reduce, do we need 200 people, now we need 50 people to do this work, as an example. So there's a real saving there. Not just the automation is able to reduce the number of people you need, deflection of cases and tickets happen in a significant way, where you can reduce the number of people required, right? So they see the value of quickly pulling the trigger there, but the risk part that you've talked about is also equally real, right? So they, it's sort of a balancing act. And I say low hanging fruit because that's where the conversation inevitably ends up going, is, hey, can we tackle support, right? um, and so, yeah, it's an interesting sort of situation, right? There is a real problem of launching something in the public domain and getting it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think another, at least from my perspective, and I'd be curious to hear Vasu if this aligns with what you are seeing in the marketplace. I think with support, processes are more standardized, right? Like companies have spent a
Mhm.
ton of time. There are knowledge articles, there is a process, there is an SLA, all of that. Sales tends to still be, a domain where a rep has an enormous amount of freedom to do things the way they want, and
Sure.
probably rightfully so. So I think it with sales, when we talk about AI with our customers also, it's almost a play on productivity, right? 70% of time that sales reps spend is spent not selling, right? It's a productivity play. And it's also a forecast that, hey, if we reduce this time by this much, here's how much time, money you'll save. Imagine how much more your people can sell. But with support, it is extremely measurable. It's very, very
Yeah,
tangible.
the KPIs are
Right?
100%. 100%.
So is
uh,
that, are you seeing that as the driver, or are there other drivers at play?
no, that's the driver. You're right, because it's far more structured. It's an easier area to tackle, right? Whereas if you go into the other areas, it it's a prerequisite that you understand the domain, you understand the processes, where are the bottlenecks or the blockers, how do we optimize it. So a practitioner view of the world is needed. So when you come in as a partner, that domain knowledge is super critical. Have you worked in that space? So it's not just about the technical aspect of delivering a solution. You have to bring the value of the knowledge of that industry and the role, and how do you see the AI automation play out. So it puts a more burden on the consulting partner to be that much more ready to have this more complex conversation, because it's not. So on the service side, you're right, everything is straightforward, right? There are structured processes, how knowledge bases, databases or FAQs, and the processes are very structured, right? And the SLAs and so on. Here it's an unknown area. It's not an unknown area, it's more about, you have to dive deeper into that area to actually co-create. In other words, you're not building this in isolation, you're actually working with those user personas, and you have to also bring in some level of knowledge. So it's a harder play, if you will, right? And it's a longer play also, because there may be more complexity that in the processes itself for you to sort of implement. And I think therein lies the difference, but there is, the promise is also greater there, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the how much automation can deliver for the personas, right?
So speaking of automation, there is a question that came through, right? Like there's a subtle difference between AI automation versus implementation of automation that uses AI. Which one do you believe is more practical and powerful? So I'm
That's a
curious,
great question.
yeah, I'm curious to
Yeah.
get your takes, Vasu, as
No,
well.
no. So from Vikas, and I know Vikas. Hey, hi. Um, you know what? Uh, Sometimes I feel, I mean, my own view, implementation of automation that uses AI is where I would kind of hang my hat at right now. Because if you think about it, you're orchestrating complex workflows where not all of it is AI, some of it is non AI, but you're stitching everything together, right? So it's not just about AI automation, right? It's enabling AI automation. So that's where I would uh, go to. But it's a good debate to have. I'm not, but I'm on that side as far
I
as I say.
I would tend to agree, and I think it's less about which is more powerful, and I think it's because, as you very rightly asked that question, it's more about what's practical today, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's one of those few times in the history of humanity, probably the only time, in at least, if based on my limited knowledge of history, where innovation is so far outpaced where the customer is at, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
because all of us are just trying to catch up with every new AI development that's
yeah,
happening
yeah,
every hour of the day, right? New models are coming out of Google, OpenAI, all of these companies are just constantly putting stuff out. And if you look at the state of our customer, you look at state of our own businesses, right? The systems that we have, the information and the way it's getting managed, we are still trying to deal with very, very basic stuff, contact deduplication, leads,
yeah, 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 yeah.
right? Activity logging. So there's so many of those things where, to Vikas's point, the automation that uses AI is much, much more palatable today. It's more practical. It actually helps you move forward into that area without kind of betting the farm, right? And I
I
think
think you brought a
good
great point, Saurabh,
segue into.
because pragmatism has to come in, right? So I don't think you can take a utopian view, and you're right, right? So there's a lot of angst for buyers because they're still uncharted territory for them, and they are trying to navigate this in best ways and make the case and get secure the funding that, hey, this is going to deliver so much value. And so they also see the risk of it, right? So, and again, many things are unproven and people have to go, navigate through the hype, and they don't like it, and that gives them fatigue. And are people answering questions with refreshing transparency when they are in a sales cycle is also very important, right? So I think these are the things that give the buyers or the customers sleepless nights, because they want to make big decisions on AI, but are they fully convinced? Do they have the information, and is the information being abstracted in a way that they understand it, or are people giving them painting a pretty picture that's not something that can be delivered? So I think honesty and transparency in these conversations is equally important from all stakeholders. The product company like Salesforce, the customer, these conversations need to be more grounded and real, and also factor in the reality of their enterprise. What is the maturity of their enterprise? What are the kinds of challenges they have around data or data quality or other things? Build stuff on a strong foundation. Don't try to build things on a shaky foundation, right? I think so. These conversations need to be had even more, right, for you to make the sale or move the needle on the amount of uh, value that you can deliver. And that's my honest feel. Like, they want honesty in everything. They want transparency. They don't want you to sell. They want you to solve the problem. I think there's a difference between sell and solve. So I think that's where they are headed. They want to be convinced on that you can solve the problem for them, right? So don't sell product, sell solutions, or solve a problem that a customer has. I think that's the shift that needs to happen anyway in terms of the narrative.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point. Sell, not solve. Solve, not sell. I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Question for you then. You talk to a lot of Salesforce customers, obviously. So, what's the general sentiment? Where are they headed? Because what I'm hearing from large enterprises, they're looking at a bunch of options, right? They can obviously
Mhm,
pick what Salesforce has. They can pick Microsoft Copilot. They can pick like a ton of AI
mhm,
studio
mhm.
type solutions, what we do at GPT-5. So there's a lot of products that try to solve pieces of the puzzle from a enterprise's perspective that has, I don't know, 150 to 1500 systems somewhere in there. What are you seeing with customers? How are they thinking about it? And what are their challenges just bringing AI to Salesforce?
I I think honestly the challenges are more around understanding how do they solve this at an enterprise level over and beyond Salesforce also. How do these agentic things talk to each other? So if you're thinking about agents outside the Salesforce realm as well, right? And so I think they are struggling with this notion of how do I go all in on a Salesforce solution for agentic AI, or are there other solutions out there that can still address it and still provide the data security and provide everything, and can I still enable it in the customer experience? I think they're still trying to answer these questions. Meanwhile, I feel Salesforce is getting stronger in terms of uh, a being all in on on AI and Agentforce and Data Cloud. And they're also maturing the solution. So I think the trust factor should improve, in my opinion, because their journey is also, they're very nascent, right? So they're also going through this journey of bringing confidence, right? That hey, this platform makes every bit of sense to you. But people want choices, right? People, by definition, every buyer wants choice. They want to see, hey, what are the alternatives which are equally relevant, maybe more cost effective, simpler solutions. Maybe they address something. So it's not mutually exclusive. It can be that some things are addressed by some other solution versus the Salesforce solution. So I think people are looking for alternatives as well, in my opinion, to see what else can I think of by way of a solution, and do I want to be all in on this platform. The last thing I'll say is transparency around cost is very important, because how do you project a cost for consumption and storage and so on, right? I think they want answers to be pretty accurate. They want to know what is it going to be transaction costs, what is it going to be on something like Agentforce, what is it going to be my compute and storage cost on Data Cloud, can I do it without Data Cloud, or what does it matter? So I think all these questions are getting asked. I mean, from customers, enterprise customers, right? So it's just about bringing the overall value proposition to be strong enough, right? In terms of the solution, the time to value, the overall cost that they're looking at, and the efficiencies that it brings. So it's really solving the business problem. In a way, it's agnostic to the product in a weird way, right? I want AI. I don't know what AI I want. Do I want Salesforce AI? Do I want this? I want AI. I want these efficiencies. Now craft me a solution that addresses this and shows me that you can deliver it quick, you can deliver it, and and get me the efficiencies and savings. So I think if you abstract from the technology part, they are open to all sorts of ideas. They just want to solve the problem and bring AI and help innovate faster and bring efficiencies. I think it's become a business problem more than just a technology problem, right? So I think that's what they want. The larger problem is that is what they want, uh, anyone to address now. So the conversation is really going towards, hey, I get all that, I get Salesforce, I get this, but bring me a solution, right? And show me that it'll work. And reliability wise, lots of things, right? I don't want to go to an unproven solution. I don't even know if these guys have been in the market for 6 months. Why would I go and invest with them, right? Would I not go with a trusted platform? Those are critical considerations.
Yeah, no, I think one thing I really like that you said is that it has today it has definitely become a business problem more than
Right,
technology.
right.
And I talk to a lot of enterprise architects, and I think that's an area where they are constantly challenged, right? It is no longer about it's Salesforce's, it's Agentforce or GPT-5 or Microsoft Copilot or whatever, right? Google's platform. It doesn't really matter so much after a point. It goes back to what you were saying earlier. Like they all get that they need to incorporate AI, right, to remain competitive and to sort of move as fast as everybody else in the marketplace is moving. They also know what is the outcome they're looking for, right? Whether it's improve my win rate
Yeah,
or use
yeah.
cost, right? So you know the goal, you sort of know the tool that we want to use as an enterprise, and really the question is what combination of technologies would let you do that? What vendors would you work with to do this? Because what you just said about like trusted partners and sort of how long
Hmm.
they've been
Hmm.
doing this is so on point. Like I've in my past life, I used to be an enterprise architect. There are vendors which I look at and I'm like, how much experience do you have in large
Exactly. Hmm.
enterprises, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. And I think you're right. And I think that trust is huge for an enterprise customer. right? They don't want to risk it. I mean, there could be incredibly amazing companies that are at the forefront of stuff, but they're not yet proven, right? Are you going to risk uh, things by choosing them? That's the problem. And there's lots of such companies that are coming with, innovative solutions. The question is, are they ready, right, to buy? No, they see a lot of risk, and I think that's where there's more caution there from their side towards more trusted platforms, trusted, you know, products, trusted partners. That's inevitable. But the other part of this is also that monolithic solutions are no longer relevant. So you have to now look at things that are going across, you know, technologies, infrastructure.
Mm.
How does AWS and Salesforce work, or how does so the world is changing, and I think Salesforce also recognizes it, and so
Yep.
everyone's sort of realizing that we have to move past trying to bring everything into one place and saying that it's all Salesforce. And I don't think we are in that world also anymore. So
Yeah, for sure. Particularly large enterprises, I think.
large enterprises, yeah.
I find that Salesforce is definitely a strategic platform, but so is SAP for them. So is Microsoft. So is
Exactly,
probably
exactly.
Oracle, right? So is probably GCP, AWS, whatever they're using. They have homegrown solutions. So is Snowflake, Redshift, Fabric, right? Like
Yeah,
they have a whole ton of things that they're dealing with. And I think back to your point earlier around that what large enterprises will have is a combination of technologies.
exactly.
I think being a true partner and being interoperable has probably never been more important than it is today.
100%. I think that you hit it on the nail. That is exactly what they're looking for. Don't solve my problems in silos. You've got to give me something that works across my enterprise, right? Or interoperability is there. And so, if you construct a workflow that spans across my ERP and CRM and everything, it should all flow and work. So that's definitely consideration for a lot of customers.
Yeah. And I think when I even reflect on our journey, like, so GPT-5 has been in production for 2 years with customers, a lot of large enterprises, Fortune 500 type customers. And one of the things that we are now very heavily investing is that interoperability. It's one thing that you can have agentic capabilities, which obviously we do, Salesforce does, and a bunch of other people do, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You can turn them on. But if my agentic capability, that you just deployed does not work with your SAP's Joule or,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah, yeah.
like I can't do a quote to cash, right? Like I'm like
No, you can't. You can't. Yeah,
I'm like, on Slack or Teams or Copilot, I'm like, hey, create me a code for ABC Corporation, which you can go to GPT-5, we can create a code, integrate with CPQ, do all that. But delivery has to come from SAP, right? The
yeah,
credit
yeah,
worthiness of the customer may have to come from NetSuite. When you
yeah.
think about, like, we are talking about an orchestration and enterprise
Exactly,
first again,
exactly.
but now with a sprinkle of AI on it.
Yeah, 100%. It's really coming down to that orchestration and interoperability across all of these systems. I think you're not solving all these processes span across different systems. So it's definitely not localized, right? So no one will be able to solve it from just their own little world. It's not going to happen, right?
Yeah,
And all these companies recognize it. I mean,
true.
that is why they're investing so much. If you look at where even Salesforce is headed, and I like the fact that they're all in, right? There is nobody can stand on the sidelines on this topic.
No, you cannot.
Either you're a skeptic or you're all in. And it's a good thing that Salesforce is all in, because they're focused on making this better and better, right, as a platform. And I think that's a heartening sign for customers, and they're making all the right investments. So when people ask, right, I think this was who's the other co-founder of Salesforce, Parker, right? I think the question was asked to him, and he said the same thing, right? We don't have a choice; we have to be all in, and I think that's the right way for Salesforce to view this as well.
Yeah, no,
That
and yeah, we've obviously built our business on the platform, and I'm so glad that we did. Right back to your point on trusted platform, works really really well. Like we've Fortune 5 type customers as well, where literally the only reason we got in was because we are built on top of a platform they love and trust. So I am
Yeah, yeah. So
very
we are all
proud of
in.
that.
We love the platform. We want to see more success, and we want to see that the they are evolving the agentic AI in the right direction, which they are. I definitely feel that that's all happening. I think this intermediate journey of a product being launched and it's still nascent and it's still evolving, at that time when you're selling, there's still a lot of questions you need to answer. But
Yeah,
as it gets mature, those questions will also disappear. I mean,
and
that's pretty much it.
they've done this before, right? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
we'll
This is not the
every
first time,
every
and
release
they've
in a
got
year
great
keep
leaders.
adding capability.
Exactly, exactly.
I think it's interesting because one of the takeaway for me, Vasu, from this conversation, which I didn't think about it this way in the past, is AI in large enterprise is not a winner take all game, right? It's not going to be just Microsoft, just Salesforce, just SAP, just somebody. It will be a combination of tools and technologies because you are spanning enterprise wide processes. And I think anybody who thinks that they single handedly will dominate in the enterprise are probably not giving this problem enough thought.
Yeah, and the last point is partners now need to be bringing in the broader perspective. So you can't be just Salesforce. I think everyone in the ecosystem will have to now look at the bigger picture too. Like how do we bring SAP? How do we bring all of this? And how do we bring interoperability? So I think the skill set change, right? Like partners need to think bigger. They're not solving smaller problems now, right? And so that mindset shift and is also required, right? So when you come in, you should be able to have those conversations with customers, right? Because they expect you to talk about all of it, not just saying, hey, don't just talk about Salesforce, but what about, I need this orchestration to be done end to end. How are you going to enable me? And if you don't have an answer, then they'll say, hey, I don't think you're the right partner, right? So I think that's also going to be important as we go, right?
Well, I know we are almost at time, but we'll take this one more question that Vikas asked. I'm curious if you have a point of view on it, Vasu. So, are the enterprise clients so focused on AI solutions, partly due to FOMO, that they lose sight of how their data is actually being used to get there?
Okay. I don't think it's FOMO. I think there's real pressure on the businesses today, right? How do I get a competitive edge? So they're not doing it out of FOMO. They're doing it out of the necessity to compete, right? So it's coming down to how do I become more competitive, right? I don't believe that's driving it. There's maybe very naive, some small set of customers who are doing it out of FOMO, completely wrong. They shouldn't be doing it because of FOMO. But most of them are seeing the pressure in terms of their business, right? And so, how do I bring those cost efficiencies? How do I bring process automation efficiencies? I think that pressure is now higher than ever before. And so they don't want to be at a competitive disadvantage. So they're looking at it with the right mindset that, hey, we have to drive our business to the future. And I think that's what most customers are thinking.
I would agree. And to the second part of this question of how their data is actually being used to get there. So, I personally think that if you look at most enterprise grade solutions today, right, whether it's coming from Salesforce, from us, from Microsoft, from anybody, there is a ton of security and guardrails built in.
Hmm.
Um, yes, you have to still implement them. Yes, you have to configure them, right? If a vendor is misconfiguring how they store auth tokens, you right, it's not something that you can go back and blame somebody else for. So yes, there are checks and balances that you can apply, but there is a ton of capabilities, particularly in data security governance guardrails, that's been built by vendors like us and Salesforce and others, and by the LLM hosting hyperscalers. So if you're looking at Azure, AWS, all of them, they have, depending on the model, they do have retention settings of how long do you want to retain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, sort of one last point is just the skilling part. I'll just say that gap worries me. Like you need multidisciplinary skills now from partners, right? How are they skilling up is the worry for everyone. Like it's like if you're converting a traditional developer to a different mindset now, I think the skills need to improve and you need time to get to a certain point. So I think there is a skill set gap that needs to be rapidly addressed so that the solutions being crafted are are of the highest quality. And the point is, you don't miss the, and you need good product managers to raise the bar on anything that's rendering an AI experience in the application comes with lots of liability issues and lots of things that, let's say, on the customer experience part, but even on the user part, if something goes wrong, right, there is an immediate impact to something. You're not able to convert a sale or an opportunity or what have you, right? So what I'm saying is that skill set, service partners need to really up their game, like, elevate the skills of the practice, because that's how you're going to succeed, right? There's no more room for mediocrity or anything. You need like strong performers to go and roll out these solutions to customers. So that that's the last thing that I think gives me sleepless nights, because you do need stronger people, and you have to get there quickly because customers are asking for it, right? So
No, I think it's a very, very well said point, Vasu. And I, I know we are a little bit over time, but I'm now so curious. So tell me, what is Coforge doing? What are you guys doing to address that? Because that skill gap is a real issue for customers, partners, product companies like ourselves and others. How are you addressing that?
So we have a much larger corporate initiative around the AI part, which is, so everybody. So there's a healthy amount of evangelism. There's a healthy amount of tooling, training that's happening, and then customers are also pushing us towards it. So there has to be a larger thing. It's not like an individual practice thing. So AI is pervasive from an AI group that's there, that's pushing the entire company, right? So I think that's, and so there's thought leadership there. There are they are the ones who are actually having broader conversations with customers, and it's percolating down to all of the individual practices that are there, right? So we are investing a lot in sort of elevating the skill set, bringing in the right tooling, bringing in the right training, and that it's a work in progress for everybody. But the fact that you have executive buy-in and there is an organization that's championing it and setting the agenda for it, that's important. Like, I cannot do it just as a Salesforce practice, or I say this has to come from that kind of a buy-in from the executives. And there is a charter, there is an AI group that's out there that's also innovating and doing a lot of solutioning and talking to customers. So I think that is how you drive that change and bring it and percolate it down to the entire organization. But I mean, I think the speed is important, but everyone's trying to get there. So we are also in that journey. But I brought it up because it's a very real concern, right?
No.
How fast can you get there is kind of interesting, right?
For sure. Well, that's great. I'm very glad to hear what Coforge is doing in this space. And for anybody who's tuning in, please feel free to reach out to Vasu or me on our LinkedIn, and we can continue the conversation there. Vasu, thank you so much. This has been really informative for me and very interesting
Hey,
conversation.
thank you so much for having me. I think it's a great conversation. We should probably do more of these conversations, even if it's offline. And I look forward to working with you guys. I really think bringing in innovative solutions is the need of the hour. How do we look at taking and giving more value to customers? Thank you so much. Yeah,
Likewise.
looking forward.
Take
Thanks.
care. Have a great day.